En nomine di nostri Satanae Luciferi excelsi. En nomine Domini Spiritus Mundi est Satanas. En domus di orum et ausium. Momento mori. En domus di. En nomine Ordo Novus Seclorum in nomine Satanae. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite dark sorcerer here. And today I want to discuss a little bit about the dark arts and understanding it. A lot of people really don't have the notion of how to even begin to understand black magic or the practitioners that practice these types of sorceries. You have different subdivisions and adversities going on in the world that a lot of people get into their head that they're just going to go with the flow and do what everybody else is doing. In sorcery, it's about self evolution. It has nothing to do with the world. You take Satanism for an example. A Satanist knows that it's about self preservation and self gratification. Anything that brings the individual self gratification is all good as long as it doesn't violate the number one and highest law of self preservation. Okay? Now, Satanists follow a lot of different rules depending on the tradition, style, the formulae that they get into. A lot of times you see practitioners get into Satanism because they want to play the bad guy to the church. They want to use it as an excuse to belittle people, to belittle the the church. Others get into it because they want to learn and they want to grow. They're looking for something to connect to, a sense of belonging. In this case, we know that a lot of the individuals become part of the herd conformity, the main body of armchair magicians. And this is why they don't connect to the source, they don't connect to the deities, the demons, especially if they get into Satanism. And because they don't get results right off the bat, they move on to the next and the next and the next and the next, really never connecting to anything. And eventually these types end up right where they began, back with the JCI, the Judo Christian institutions. A lot of times you see people leaving the church and they go into things like Wiccan, or pagan practices, even neo pagan practices. This is because of the fact that they have the idealism about white and magic being good. Okay? They think it's about doing no harm to anyone. But most importantly, they see it as being grounded and aligning themselves with the source of earth based mentality. There is no God, there is no devil. Basically, your atheistic perception, where they go out and they work on mastering the elements of earth, water, fire, air, and spirit. But when you get right down to it, they're still closed minded. They're still judging others that are trying to evolve and to learn, and they're putting forth their knowledge. And this is called reverse Christianity. These white lighters are more interested in control. A lot of times when you get into a coven based setting, you have women running these types. A lot of times these are feminists trying to gain some foothold or of control in their own lives. But don't get me wrong, there are others who get into the left hand path practices that want to find control. They want to find a balance and they want to evolve. They want to learn, but they have no real firm grounding of where to even begin. They have no recollection of where to begin. What sources should they delve into? So they start dabbling in various different traditions, never really submitting to any one style, form, or tradition. They become eccentric, what most people refer to as the travelers. These are the gypsy types that like to, or nomads that like to travel. But when they get into it, they don't learn for themselves. They make that mistake of not learning for themselves, and then they make another mistake of accepting established norms. Now, when they do this, a lot of times it's not about the learning, it's not about the evolution, it's more about taking things at face value, which is not a bad thing if you think about it. When you get into a coven based setting, such as a coven, a witch's coven, or a witch's den, it becomes more about that community. Whereas being a solitary practitioner is a lot different because you got more freedom, you got more ability to maneuver through the minefields of drama, chaos, and anarchy that is out there. But still, a lot of these people hold on to these ideals that were created back in 1970s by Gerald Gardner, like the three-fourth law of return. There's really no mention of that before that hand, not even in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which some claim that it is. You see, if you haven't done your homework, you wouldn't know this stuff. But like going into the JCI, a lot of these individuals end up believing only what they're told from the higher ups without doing any real form of study, practice, experimentation, finding out what works for them and not for someone else. When we get into Druidism, it is truly a nature based religion. It is about becoming a spiritual advisor. It's about earth based, but also spiritualism, much like necromancy, much like becoming a seer, a medium. Same exact thing. It's about becoming sensitive to the spirits. But again, just like in Satanism and Christianity, you have different denominations: Alexandrian, witchcraft, Christian witchcraft, Christian and satanic witchcraft, and such. Okay. Even in Satanism, you have according to the last poll, you have theistic Satanism, spiritual Satanism. You have traditional Satanism, agnostic Satanism, and then you have demonolators and Luciferian Satanists. Just like in witchcraft, you also have Luciferians. But a lot of people don't delve into these other systems. They treat it more as there we go. Felt that building up there. Um, you see a lot of it as branches off the main bodies of what used to be ritualized and ceremonial has now become diplomacy, democratic organizations of who's right and who's wrong, who's evil, who's good. Hey, Alcohol, what's going on? So you can see where it's not just the white light traditions of the left hand path or that of the right hand path. It's also the left hand. It's all over the place. And you can see the same duality in mindset going all the way back into the Dead Sea Scrolls, especially that within the scroll of Amrit, okay, where the sons of light are led by Michael, and the sons and daughters of darkness are led by Belial. Okay, the duality. Some aspects of this refer to upheaval within the government or cultural, perhaps even national. Okay, whereas in other cases, it's a sign of good versus evil, light versus dark, men versus women. The whole balance factor. Hey, Felix, what's going on? And then Nikki and Morrison, what's going on? So, anyways, you're going to see the same duality going back and forth throughout centuries. Okay, you look at the deities that we've seen, Ahura Mazda versus Orion. Okay, you go into the Necronomicon, you're going to see Marduk versus Tiamat. Christianity, you have God versus Satan or Lucifer versus Michael. Okay, it's that same duality going all the way back to the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, and the funny thing is that the one thing I've noticed is that a lot of people claim that they want to learn, but they really don't. They inquire, but they block you as soon as you reply. Now, personally, I've learned to follow the Mazajira Cabal system way of doing things, which is to wait and see how bad people really want to learn that knowledge. You know, I tell people, you, I'll make myself available here on Messenger and or here on YouTube and on Messenger and Facebook. Okay, but here's the kicker: a lot of people that come to me personally treat it as a game. They are unbelievers. And I had somebody recently within the last couple of weeks come to me, and I was in the drive through of where I work, and he pulls up and he says, "Hey, you remember me?" I said, "Yeah, I remember you from about 3 4 years ago." And he says, "You know that prediction you gave me?" And I said, "Yep, it came true, didn't it?" He says, "Yeah." He's sitting there with a daughter and his fiance, because I told him within a year you're going to meet a woman and you're going to have a family. He did not believe me. He thought it was a joke. You see, these are the types that you get, but a lot of which they get the wrong idea, the wrong impression of what sorcery is and what witchcraft is in general. Yeah, that sounds about right. My son's mom actually rearranged the living room last during the night and today while I was at work. She actually did a pretty good job. Now that just leaves the bedroom, and I got plans for the altar room as well. So yeah, it is a great time, especially with the coronavirus going around, and people are in lock. Well, some places are in lockdown, others are more limited maneuverability, I guess you could say. But it's coming to an end anyways. So I mean, what's the point of thinking about a lockdown or a crackdown on things? Yeah. So, anyways, when we get into this stuff, a lot of people they come to me wanting to join Satanism, think it's about joining the Illuminati and becoming rich and famous. I said, and you tell them you got the wrong impression about what Satanism is. You got the wrong idea of what necromancy is. You know, a lot of times when you look up the definition of necromancy, you come up against the Greek definition of corpses. This is also known as rejuvenation of a corpse for spiritual divining purposes of knowing the past, present, and future, or to simply ask a certain question to receive an answer for that desired question. Whereas conjuration, on the other hand, is conjuring a spirit to divine the past, present, and future. It's not designed for any given purpose outside of that. But necromancy, about 1,000 years ago, or let's say 500 years ago, was associated with blood sorcery. 1,000 years ago, it was associated and closely resembling that of shamanism. But a lot of people don't know this, just like they don't know the three different spellings of it. 1,000 years ago, you had nigromancy, meaning the art of black magic. Okay, practice of black magic. 500 years ago, it was spelled with a Y. Necromancy or nigromancy with a Y, N-Y or N-I. Now it's associated with necro, meaning corpse or dead, death. If people actually delved into the medical definitions, they'd see a whole other variation of necromancy in general. Yeah, they want it shut down for like 14 days, especially with a lot of places like New York have over 1,400 cases already. You go into other aspects of the country. I can tell you right now that where I live in the state of Maine, you already have, what was it? The last time I looked at it was like 107 cases. From what I understand, as of today, it jumped up to 118 confirmed cases. So, I mean, you got to take into consideration that even though a lot of businesses have been closed down or limited, like my job, we don't normally close until 10 p.m. Okay, but because of this mandated um, ordinance that has been filed, we have to close at 7. All businesses in the state of Maine have to be closed by 8 p.m. Okay. And from what I understand, if you're not part of a mandated or beneficial type working as of midnight tonight, there's a crackdown on all businesses will be closed. So I mean the place that I work is safe, because you have a lot of law enforcement and medical personnel that live off where I work. So obviously that's going to play a huge effect. So it's a major industry that is going to survive the lockdown in that manner. Um, but on the other hand, if you look at things, this was actually seen. And since we're on this aspect of necromancy and chiromancy practices, and the three different spellings of necromancy in itself, going back 1,000 years, chiromancy was a practice that was closely associated with necromantic practices due to spiritual conjuration, such as mediumship. Okay. And what's interesting to note here is that Sylvia Browne was one of the top psychics in the world. She's written numerous books right up until she died. About, what's it been now? I want to say it's been like 20 years since she passed away. I want to say she passed away in the late 90s. Maybe the early 2000s area, around that region. I'd have to Google her name and see it. But the funny thing is, she actually predicted this in her book, End of Days. Okay. And the way she described it was a pneumonia-like pandemic that attacks the lungs in the bronchial area of the chest, much like a pneumonia type thing. And what's ironic about it is she said that it's a plague that will ravage the world, and just as quickly as it appeared, it will disappear, and then it'll reappear 10 years later and disappear permanently. Okay? So basically the world has had literally about 15 to 20 years to prepare for this. But we're talking about the mundane majority of humans here. Arrogance, closed-mindedness. You look at how many people claim to be mediums or psychics or practitioners out there. Okay. And what's interesting to note is that a lot of people will go to them over an actual practitioner. We actually have to work 100 times harder just to gain clients, just to provide for our families. Because you got somebody that puts on a good show, that people are going to believe them over you. You take what I do here, an educational site. Okay, I'm not. Why should I teach you when I can simply guide you to the materials and help you to become a practitioner of these arts yourself? Okay, but because I have 30 years behind me, most would think I'm lying because I've been involved in so many different different religious and philosophical path workings. There was one person that said he's a fake. Just look at all the names on his profile. Okay, Magister. Okay, with the Embassy of Lucifer. Magus of the Church of Belial. What if I told you that Magus is another name for high priest in Satanism? Magister is a high-ranking member of an order or a religious foundation. Okay, an overseer. Okay, much like a reverend in a church. Okay, but even religious foundations don't recognize these, and they will reject you minister wise just because they think that you're playing them just by adding a name. But these are things that have been around for over 2,000 years. 2,000 years, going all the way back to ancient Babylonia, Sumeria, Slavic, Balk, modern day Ukraine, Russia, Germany, the Germanic, Anglo-Saxon, Indo-European, Welsh, Gaelic, Icelandic, ancient Greek, Magi, Magus, Magi, Mage, Sage. These are titles that were given to practitioners that were respected. Even when Satanism became a recognized religion, Anton Zandalevay was the Black Pope. After he died, in his organization, Peter H. Gilmore became the new one after Blanche Barton stepped down after 3 weeks. And we all know how that went. Okay. Now, what's ironic is that depending on your personal path and religious foundation, you look at the First Amendment and what makes up a protected religion: a foundation, a following, in scripture, meaning doctrine. Okay. Now you look at religious land use and personalized religious acts. No individual, sect, organization, or assembly has the right to limit or deny you your religious freedoms. Okay. And yet, the American Fellowship does this. Okay. They do. Whereas the Universal Life Monastery will just simply grant it. You put it there, well, that's what you get. That's what you're recognized as through that organization. But I can also see from their point of view of the different names and the possibilities that people would come up with just to be considered an ordained clergy. I learned from Christians. Okay. I've stated this in the past. There are two ways to become an ordained minister. One is to spend thousands of dollars and go to a biblical college, or where most ministers come from is underneath another clergy. In this case, I learned from another minister, and I was ordained as a minister. Okay. And I am a universal minister. So, because I've studied so many different religions and practice and was initiated into these practices. Okay. So here it is. Because a lot of people don't delve into the practices, they don't delve into the mythologies, they don't delve into the history or the mythology aspects of everything. They only accept established norms, which is why it comes down to arrogance and stupidity. But there are those who actually honestly and earnestly seek to evolve. And those are the ones that I try to connect with. Like I said earlier, in my last video, I have a client, an apprentice that I'm teaching right now. I have actually three apprentices going right now, where one wishes to enlighten himself with his psyche, become more spiritually attuned, to be able to see and communicate with spirits. You have another one that just simply wants to learn how to be a practitioner and delve back into the roots. And then you have another one that's simply a self-motivated learner. Okay. But the funny thing is that all three of these individuals are self-motivated. They're they're literally going out and learning for themselves. And it's an awesome thing. It really is. I got a lot of respect for these three. I've taught practitioners how to be open spiritually. I've taught them how to evolve and about their practices in general. And what's interesting to note is that one is now a mother. She was a Satanist. And before that, she literally didn't have, she was failing school. She didn't have a boyfriend. She didn't have a job. She was basically a rebound, let's go with a heretic, okay, or what was classified as a troublemaker, okay, attempting to do things that most people would seem afflicting. But after I got involved with her, she ended up starting getting A's in school. She started, she got a part-time job. She graduated from high school. She is now a mother, okay, of a little boy. And I'm proud of her. You know, my my brother and best friend, he was an atheist when I first met him. And you know what's interesting? Is since then he has moved into other regions of occult communities, traditions, and styles, and he has evolved tremendously, tremendously. And I got a lot of respect for him. I've seen how far he has come in just the 5 to 10 years that I know him, that I've known him. Okay. And I've had others that I've taught in, you know, I have one that lives probably about 5 hours from where I live. Okay, currently. And what's interesting to note is that she sees me as her priest, her black pope, and she will not go to anyone else out of respect because it's how much respect she has for me and how much I've taught her. Okay. Now, even though I've tried sending her materials from outside of that, she really likes to stay within Satanism, at least until she becomes more comfortable with it and settled in. Okay. Which is awesome. I've got nothing but respect for her in that area. But I've also seen where she's evolved in her practices and how far she's come. This teaching individuals how to evolve and utilize magic through the various different traditions, and styles is nothing new to me. So I mean, Exactly. And I do concur with that, by the way, Nikki. Nikki just said, and because of this pandemic, I'm getting a lot more spiritual work, which is good since I'm not working. LOL. Well, you know what? Spiritual work is nothing is always a good thing. There's a lot you can do through spiritualism. For an example, since this whole thing started, I've really delved more into rituals and study. I've really started getting back into my roots, getting back into spiritualism, really delving headfirst into it. I'm starting, I got back into meditation. I got back into invoking and evoking the spirits that I work with, making blood packs, recertifying them, and getting to know these beings. Over the last 7 months, I've worked with the seven princes of sin, while I've been working with the demonic and other aspects of the Mazajera Cabal system. The last year and 3 months, well, I've gotten so much into there, into spiritualism, and getting into folklore and everything into that area, Nikki, that I can't tell you how far my mind has just been blown wide open yet again. And it's very good to get back into this stuff. It's a great time, especially if you end up in a lockdown. There's a lot of things that you can do. You can set up a gym. Use what you have in your own home. Work out. Stay fit. Do push-ups, laterals. Utilize like a chair and do deadlifts. Okay. Um, there's a lot that you can do. Squats, even jumping jacks. Put on some good music and just go for it. Go into your altar rooms and spend a lot of time, as much time as you want there. Pick up a book, start reading. It helps to make the time go by faster. More so, it will benefit you in the long run because you're becoming more and more acquainted with the current of sorcery, of magic. Okay? So it's not just, putting yourself out there and your services out there, especially nowadays, okay, with this coronavirus going around. So I mean, you can really put yourself out there and actually help people get back on their feet. Do cartomancy, rune readings, do Sophia Mancy, for an example, and a whole bunch of other stuff that you can do if you are very well acquainted with your tradition. Okay. When you're in tune with the spirits and you're in tune with yourself and the energies and the currents around you, not just with spirits themselves. You can use what you know to help benefit somebody else. All right. So yes, that's just one small portion, Nikki, that you can do. All right. Oh, yeah. Knowing those who create video games, they would probably get. They. I hope they would get my good side. But yeah, that would actually be an interesting video game that I would try out, I think. But yeah. Yes, I have. I found it to be similar to Christopher Penziak's book of High Witchcraft, but also that of Frater UD on his two books. There's a lot of information that correlates and intertwines between those three authors. And that makes two of us, by the way. So, yes, there's a lot that you need to do to understand sorcery and magic in general. It's not just white magic or black magic, gray witchcraft, or whatever you want to call it these days. There's so many different categorizations of titles and subdivisions. Most do not have the gall to sit there and evolve above them as a sorcerer would do. Okay? So it's up to you if you wish to take the time to actually get connected to the currents and to actually evolve past the divisions and adversities that are out there. Now, personally, I get a lot of people, especially my own coworkers, that they're so obsessed with this whole coronavirus aspect that it's creating drama and tension, unnecessary tension within the workplace. And but it's not just that; it's also, well, Trump's doing this, or oh my God, the government got shut down again because of this deadlock type stuff. It's like two presidents in a row. Obama had the government shut down for like 14 days. Oh my God, Trump did the same thing. Who gives a shit? It's a worldly bullshit that distracts you from what needs to be done. Okay? The best way I can tell you is shun the world. You go to work to make a living for you and your families. That's all good. But I would also recommend don't give me lip, Bella. My familiar just came into the altar room. So, so yeah. But anyways, if you really want to evolve and understand sorcery and become a sorcerer or sorceress, a warlock, a witch, a brujo, okay? Delve into the myths, the legends, the folklores. Don't just limit yourself to one region of the world. Go into all the regions. Get into every system of sorcery, and you're going to see commonalities. You're going to see differences, but you're also going to see spiritualism at its greatest in how these practitioners were viewed. Okay, it's not just getting in touch with the current or becoming sensitive to spiritualism, working on your own psychic development. There's so much more. To quote a wise mage, it's a marathon. It's not a race. Okay, it's not about how fast you get there. It's about that taking that time and learning the proper steps. It's about learning the proper ways of what your craft is and what you as a sorcerer or sorceress can do. Okay? It's the awakening process, the quickening. Read, learn, study, experiment, and practice. That's the biggest stuff that you can do. And when you're ready, begin making oaths and blood pacts, if you wish. Get acquainted with the spirits and learn from them. It's a give and take relationship. All right. So really delve into this stuff. All right. So with that said, I'm gonna get off here because I got to go put my son to bed. All right. So with that said, I hope it's been enlightening. I hope it's been education. I definitely want to thank the individuals who have jumped on here with me. Alkalone, Lord Hades, Nikki. You know, I want to thank you guys for getting on here with me and spending this evening with me. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, either here on YouTube or on Facebook, or even message me. Okay? I will make myself available. All right? And by the way, this is my familiar. That's right, I picked you up. Oh, you want to come back up? No? Okay. But anyways, have fun, and until next time, have a good day.